All right, so in this week's topic, we're going to be looking at another framework. Last week, we talked about the cyber kill chain, which is a framework developed by Lockheed Martin. This week, we're looking at another framework because there's multiple, usually in tech, there's multiple ways to get things done. So MITRE has their own attack framework that seeks to solve some of the same problems or address some of the same issues that Lockheed was addressing with the cyber kill chain. So we're going to examine this one. It's another really relevant industry, heavily industry used framework. So having some knowledge of this is going to be good for you regardless of what you do in the industry, but definitely if you're going to do anything cyber related, this is one of those frameworks that you need to be aware of. All right, so who is MITRE? MITRE is a US-based company founded in 1958. Similar to what we heard about Lockheed, they make a lot of their living doing government consulting. They're government contractors. The areas that they're contracting with the government and private sector in are focused on cybersecurity, aerospace, AI, machine learning, pretty much any kind of technical service that the government, and not just technical, but like logistics services that the government can need, MITRE provides those. Just like we heard the case with Lockheed, in dealing with their government clients and also protecting their own interests, they came up with this framework as a way to better understand how adversaries, how attackers are going after their client, their government, or private sector businesses, or even maybe trying to attack them themselves. ATT&CK is an acronym, stands for adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. They created this framework in 2013, but it's not like a one and done. Whereas if we compare that to cyber kill chain was developed and it's kind of set in stone. You got your 7 steps. There's never going to be an 8th step. Here what we'll see as we're going through this with MITRE, this is an ever evolving thing because the whole purpose of the ATT&CK framework is to give better insight into modern and advanced cyber threats. So every time a new cyber attack comes out, a new threat actor presents themselves, MITRE gets updated. So the ATT&CK framework gets updated. This is something that they're continuously contributing to make sure it's always current and relevant. From a cybersecurity perspective, the ATT&CK framework is going to help us to analyze cyber attacks and how in the different stages of cyber attacks so that we can break them. So we might say, okay, doesn't cyber kill chain do that same thing? Yes, but the ATT&CK framework takes a different approach to that. As we dive into it, you'll get a better understanding of how. Our SOC analyst for us is going to be important because this framework is going to help us to determine what actions we need to take at various stages of cyber attacks. A key component of the ATT&CK framework is something called the matrix. So the MITRE ATT&CK matrix, and there's actually more than one of them. They have three main matrices that they utilize, and these matrices are basically visualizations. A matrix is another way of saying a table. So these matrices or these tables help to outline the different types of attacks and techniques and tactics and even software that are utilized or being utilized by threat actors. They break these matrices down into 3 major groupings. So as you're exploring the ATT&CK framework, you first have to identify like what is the kind of overarching target for these attacks, and then reference the correct matrix. The majority of the things being attacked out there on our enterprise networks are going to fall under that first matrix, the enterprise matrix. If you click that link, as a matter of fact, we could do that. We click on this link, it'll take us out here to the enterprise matrix. You can see that it's a lot of stuff going on that enterprise matrix. Lots of different techniques there, lots of different types of attacks, a lot of different platforms that are being evaluated here. So the majority of the kind of investigative work that you'll do when utilizing this framework is probably going to be in the enterprise matrix. So that's one to be familiar with. This was the first matrix that MITRE ever built. Includes a lot of common digital systems. We saw a few of them. For example, of course, Windows is going to show up on there. All your popular operating systems, Mac OS, Linux, even cloud and network are included there now as well. It's the most comprehensive because of that. So the goal of this particular matrix is to help you understand how cyber attacks are going to affect an organization, but not just any organization. MITRE is geared towards large institutions because for figuring out how a cyber attack is going to affect a small entity, that's not as complex. You probably could use something like the kill chain to figure out where that attack is going to happen. But when you got a big enterprise, a big institution with a lot of moving parts, those attacks become very complex, harder to track down, and by being harder to track down, harder to shut down. So this matrix, these matrices help you to evaluate those more complex attack environments in bigger organizations so that you can shut those attacks down. The next matrix is the mobile matrix. So this one is geared towards attacks that are targeting mobile devices. Two sub matrices underneath of that are for Android and iOS because those are our two big players when it comes to mobile operating systems. So they have lots of information dealing with how to deal with attacks on those two platforms. A lot less information, of course, than an enterprise matrix, but still valuable because more increasingly you're seeing these mobile devices being utilized in corporate environments. Not to say that this attack matrix can't help you do security for like an individual. Like you literally could take this attack matrix, and if you want to practice applying some of the knowledge that you learn from this matrix, you could use it to help harden security on your smartphone. That actually is such a good way to practice utilizing this matrix. Use it on your technology so you can get a handle on going in there, finding your vulnerabilities and mitigating them. But again, just like enterprise, this is still going to be geared towards implementing in a business setting. And then the last matrix here, the industrial control systems matrix, or the ICS matrix. This is a matrix that is dedicated specifically for those big industrial machines and industrial computers we see operating in things like plants. So you can see in my image there, that's like an automotive plant with the big robot arms, welding cars. So there's an industrial computer with a specialized operating system that's managing all those robot arms. Nobody's manually driving that. That's all automated. So it's a system that's controlling those. Attackers want to go after those systems too. So there's a matrix for dealing with attacks that are targeting those type of industrial computers. No sub matrices for these. Industrial machines aren't as, their operating systems, their platforms aren't as standardized as computers or as mobile devices. So it'd be hard to kind of come up with like distinct platforms for them. They're like built, the operating systems are basically built for the machines that they're running. So no standardization, so no sub matrices, but there's still going to be some best practices that the framework is going to give us for securing those ICS systems. Next, we have our tactics. From the lens of MITRE, a tactic is the purpose of a cyber attacker. Basically, the reason that they're doing their attack in the first place, their actions. Tactics are going to be one of the most important things that you're going to be looking for when you reference the attack framework. So as you dig down into those different tactics, it's going to give you an idea of how cyber attackers actually implement their different attack patterns. And it's not just going to give you kind of like this generic overview. It'll dig down into some of the steps that they take in order to pull off these attacks. To start off with a general statement, like something like this, you know, the adversary is trying to get into your network. That's what the tactic of initial access is. They're trying to get into your network. Initial access consists of techniques that use various entry vectors, so on and so forth. So to start off like that with a general statement, but then as you continue to read through the information that MITRE provides for you, it'll go more in depth on how they pull off this initial access. And that's where the real kind of intelligence comes into play. Like for you as a SOC analyst or you as a cybersecurity professional, you literally can utilize this attack framework to learn how cyber criminals pull off their attacks. And then you can plan your defenses based on that. If you follow that link, that takes you to this particular tactic. You can see here that as you see the tactics, all the tactics have these ID numbers. That's how they track them. You can see that again, it's not like a dead document. They're constantly checking up on this stuff and updating it. They first cataloged this tactic in 2018, but then they modified it in 2019. And then after you learn about the tactic, then you start seeing how that tactic is implemented. And that implementation is going to come in the form of our techniques and sub-techniques. So we'll talk about those in a second. But if you take a look at these slides, these are the different tactics that each one of the matrices present. There are 14 tactics that relate to the enterprise matrix. We got reconnaissance. Some of this sound familiar. You'll see some overlap here with the cyber kill chain. So reconnaissance, there's tactics around that. Resource development, that's like making your tools. Initial access, getting that first access, that early access to the system. Execution, persistence, privilege escalation. So a lot of these things sound familiar. And matter of fact, if you were to put the cyber kill chain side by side with the attack framework, there's a lot of overlap there. Some of the steps in that 14 steps in the enterprise matrix are maybe consolidated down into a single step on the cyber kill chain, but they all are still addressing that same kind of pattern that an attacker is going to go through. For the mobile tactics, there are also 14 different tactics. Well, sorry, for the mobile matrix, there's also 14 tactics that you go through. You can see they look similar to what we saw for the enterprise. And then for our ICS systems, they have 12 tactics that you have to consider. As I mentioned before, the tactics are more or less the general goal that the attacker is trying to achieve. To get down really to the procedures, the step by step of how they pull it off, that's where we get into techniques and sub-techniques. Techniques and sub-techniques are the methods used by an attacker to achieve their goal. It's like a how-to guide behind how each one of these attacks is going to be conducted. A note here, even though a lot of the techniques do have sub-techniques, not all of them do. So you will come across some sub-techniques that, some techniques that do not have sub-techniques. The way you visually see that in the matrix is if you go in into one of the matrices, you'll see that some of these points on the matrix have a little gray bar beside them. Those gray bars indicate that there's a sub technique underneath of it. So if I'm looking at it in this view, I find this, supply chain compromise, and it's got a little expansion bar there. These are the 3 sub techniques underneath supply chain compromise. So these are additional ways that they pull off the supply chain compromise, and I can drill down into those sub techniques even further, and I can get some details on how this particular attack is played out, what tools they use for it, what threat actors are actually using that or have been detected using that out in the wild by researchers, because cybersecurity researchers are populating it. So MITRE, that's one of the things they do. They do cybersecurity research, but they also pull in research from other labs. And you can kind of see that here. Let me see if they have some of these, they'll actually, some of these attacks specifically, they'll credit people. See the references? They'll credit people with discovery. So if somebody identified this in a research paper in 2012, somebody else, there's another reference. So it's not just them pulling this information together. Academia is helping contribute to this. And they're just compiling it in one easy to use tool for us to leverage. The different types of techniques. So for enterprise, if you already went through the less defend, these numbers might look different. Back to the point of MITRE not being static, right? It's ever evolving. They're always updating this stuff. The less defend, of course, they pulled their numbers, I think, in 2023. I pulled these numbers last night. So 200, we're currently up to, on enterprise tactics, 202, and for sub techniques, 435 sub techniques. We're up to 73 techniques for mobile devices, 46 subs, and no sub techniques for ITS, but 83. We're up to 83 techniques. Next, procedures. Procedures, this is going to give you usage examples. So if the techniques and sub-techniques were like the how-to guide, the procedures are like, here's a practical example of how an attacker implemented that how-to guide. This is when they actually did it and the tools they use to actually pull it off. So the example here is there's a technique called OS credential dumping. So trying to get your operating system to dump its username and password files that are stored in it. And has it ever actually been used? Yes. This attacker group, APT group called AP, that they're referring to just simply as APT 39, they used it by leveraging a tool called Memcats. They ran Memcats against whatever the vulnerable system was, and they used that software tool in order to get that target platform to dump its operating system credentials. They use different versions of Memcats to get it. Team perspective, so a lot of that stuff is useful for identification, maybe even for red teamers who want to know how to do these attacks so that they can do maybe penetration tests or do ethical hacking, right? You want to hack into your own network, hack into your own systems so that you can figure out where the gaps are, close them up through writing up a report and then telling other teams what to fix. But from a blue team perspective, the mitigations are really important for us. A mitigation is some type of measure that you're going to take or some type of action that you're going to take to respond to those techniques and sub-techniques that we looked at earlier. Some other terms you might hear for mitigations are countermeasures, controls, or safeguards. But they all mean the same thing. It's what are you going to do to stop that attack from happening in the first place? The way that MITRE outlines that is every mitigation that they present, they're going to give it a unique ID number so that we can reference it. They're going to give it a name, and they're going to give us a description of its use. So this is a screenshot of filtered network traffic. This is one of the mitigations. Somebody's trying to attack our network. One of the things we can do to block them from attacking our network is filter the network traffic, like with a firewall. That particular technique has an ID number, is an enterprise technique for one. It has an ID number of 21557, and then I was gonna text me and be like, and then it's going to have this name adversary in the middle, and then this is the use of it. So that particular adversary in the middle, or you used to call it man in the middle attack, can be addressed by implementing this filter network traffic mitigation. Currently, there are 43 mitigations for enterprise, 13 mitigations for mobile, and 52 mitigations for ICS systems. Take a look at those numbers real quick, though. How many attacks did we say there were against? There are currently against enterprises. Let's go back a couple of slides if you follow along. Like the technique types. How many? Yeah, how many techniques are there against? 202, right? But it's only 43 mitigations. So what is that telling us? That's telling us with a handful of things, we can defend against hundreds of attacks, right? So if we can master implementing these mitigations, not only can we protect against attacks that are already known and maybe cataloged in MITRE, these mitigations can help also safeguard us from attacks we haven't even heard of yet. Because some of just regular network system hardening can protect us even against the unknown stuff. So this is valuable information, right? Because now we can say, okay, this filter network is going to protect me against this. Because you notice it's not just one ID here. It's attacking. If we were to look at this whole thing, it's probably a long list of things that just filtering the network with a firewall can protect us against. Mitigate like 100 different attacks, maybe 100, 50, 60 different attacks just by filtering your network traffic. So that comes in very handy for a blue team. Let's talk about groups. This is another thing that the MITRE framework exposes for us. APT groups, or advanced persistent threat groups, are groups of hackers who work together as like a collective. Their APTs are normally advanced level attackers. Sometimes, well, a lot of times they're sponsored, right? They're backed by like foreign governments. They might be backed by crime syndicates. They got money. That's the main point. They got money and time and talent. So they can pull off bigger attacks against some of these larger organizations. And it's not just one or two of them. I mean, I know we've all probably heard of a handful of them through the news, but there's way more of them out there than we've heard of. MITRE, in their research, one of the things that they do is they collect and they document the activities of these known APT groups. They know them, a lot of them by name. They document the way that they do attacks. They document the types of targets that they go after, because that's really important, especially for us as blue teamers. If we know that this particular group likes to go after industries that are the industry we're in, or they like to go after the type of business that we are now, and we can see what type of tools and techniques they use, now we can start putting up defenses to block that. Just like, a sports team might review their upcoming opponents' tapes of their previous games so they can see what type of plays they're going to run against them, so they can come up with defenses against it. You do the same thing here as a blue teamer. You will study the tapes of the APTs that target your industry, the APT groups that target software that you might have, and then you start putting in defenses to block them. Currently, MITRE has 152 APT groups documented. If you use that link there, it'll take you right to the groups section. If you're not using the link, if you go up here to MITRE ATT&CK, up here at the top, you can see that Here under CTI, there's the groups right there. That's another way to get to it. Along the side, you can see all the different groups, all the different known APT groups that they have cataloged. And then after you select a group, you can see if they're associated with other groups. Maybe they work together with other hacker groups. You can see some of the techniques that they have been found to use. You can even see the software that they use that they've been detected using during their attacks. But again, it goes a long way in planning out your defenses. All right, and then the last bit here with software. Here, this software in general, we know it's the programs that run on our hardware. Usually, software is helpful, but attackers, like they do with everything else, they find a way to use something that's supposed to be good for some nefarious purpose. So their software, and the software that we're referring here in the attack framework, is the software that attackers are going to use in order to pull off their cyber attacks. And we saw a list of that a little bit as we drill down into the APT, but you can look at the software directly as well. If you go back into MITRE and you go back to your CTI category up here, you can look at the software itself directly. And similar to how the APT was set up, they got a listing of all the known malicious software, or maybe not even malicious. Some of these software applications are just software tools that we use in networking or use in computing, and they figured out a way to use those software tools to get information and help them pull off their attacks. Look for an example of one. Oh, here we go. CMD. That's just the Windows command line. There's nothing malicious about that. We use that every day if you're like a Windows administrator or systems administrator, or even just a regular user. You need to find out the IP address of your computer. So that's not a malicious tool, but you can see all the instances of how that tool has been leveraged as part of a technique when attackers have been pulling off cyber attacks. So they want to make you aware of these software applications and how they're being used potentially against us in an attack scenario. Kind of like the techniques, there's going to be an ID number assigned to these software applications. They'll have their name, they'll have other software that's associated with it, and then a description. Currently, there's 794 software applications that have been categorized by MITRE as having been used as an APT by an APT group doing some type of attack. All right, and oops, that a little bit too fast. So just one last thing before we kind of break and then go down to the lab. I mentioned earlier that the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain and MITRE ATT&CK Framework have a lot of overlap. So why do we learn about both of them? Here's kind of a summary of the differences between them. How they're similar, we already kind of have seen how they're similar, but these are some notable differences in ways you might employ them as a SOC analyst. First up, we just learned that the MITRE ATT&CK Framework is going to give us very detailed information about tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs, used by attackers. It's updated on a regular basis, so it's always going to be more current. The information is going to be more current. It's also geared towards larger institutions. So if you need to figure out how advanced attacks work, then MITRE might be the tool to use. On the other hand, Lockheed Martin's cyber kill chain is pretty straightforward. It follows a sequence. You might have noticed with MITRE, you can jump around all over the place because it's not really telling you a sequence of attack. It's telling you details about any a particular type of attack or in a particular attacker. So you can think of MITRE almost like a dictionary of cyber attacks and cyber criminals, whereas Lockheed Martin is more like a step-by-step procedure on how they carry out the attacks and the pattern that they carry their attacks out in. That's going to help us when we're trying to figure out what stage the attack is at so we can actually stop it, or block it from getting to the next stage. So the best use for this, for cyber kill chain, is if we're trying to pinpoint on where in an attack process the threat is actually happening, and then building a strategy to block against it. If you want to get a little bit more kind of compare and contrast there, you can follow this link that I posted at the bottom of the slide. It'll take you to a pretty good blog that I found that talks more in depth about the MITRE framework, and it does a pretty good job of doing a compare and contrast of the cyber kill chain versus it, and then how they might apply to red team and blue team tactics. Right, that we are done. Stop recording.